Should we just kick off?
Sure.
Oh, howdy.
Howdy. Hello.
Aloha.
We should probably introduce ourselves first. I think you should go ahead.
A lot of nicknames, but call me Dumi, Duma, Dumidu. Let's get into the nicknames on a different day, maybe.
Sexkoha.
Yeah, I guess we'll leave that in the past.
That's Steve. Shout out to Steve from
Yes.
the
Shout
old
out.
days.
Shout out to Steve.
Yeah.
Good times. What about you? Tell us.
My name. I'm Dulina. Call me Dooley. I'm 9 years old.
I'm 9 years old. I live in Call of Duty.
No, I
Do you live
don't.
in Call of
Fuck
Duty?
off. Don't just randomly drop my home address. What the fuck?
Yeah, his credit card number, fucking social
I don't even
security.
have a social security.
I guess you don't have that in Lanka. We should have social security in Lanka, but anyways, it's a different
We
topic.
should have a lot of things in Lanka.
But yeah, can't have everything.
All right. We should probably talk about the reason we're here.
Yeah. What was the random? Okay, I had an impulse call with Dullah yesterday. What were we talking about? Honestly, what did we talk about at the start? Cristiano Ronaldo scoring and Messi scoring his first goal. But then we were talking about trauma and intergenerational trauma and and just talking about stories, right?
Of how like a lot of people, especially in our generation, have a lot of untold stories. So untold stories of another generation, pretty much. Especially where like it's a group of people where I think you wouldn't get that group of people in anywhere in the world. Where like if you have 20 of them in a room, probably all 20 of them would have a story about something that happened back home, be it the war, be it tsunami, anything, any sort of interesting story that they faced and they had to go through, and that they should probably talk about and share with the world, because some of these stories shouldn't die off with us, and what good are they if they do?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that's the thing. Lots of people have stories, but they just, they get buried with them. And especially in Lanka as well. I guess it's South Asian, or could be just in general. Everyone tend to discount stories, like their own stories and their own experiences. I guess because one, it might just be because especially in Lanka, it's like there's so much trauma that has happened. Say like before the war, there was like the JVP times. There's revolution stuff. Before that, it was the colonization trauma. Like this goes all the way back. So it's always like a deeper trauma that happened before. So it's easy to discount your own because be like, oh, some people have it worse, and then you, so it's kind of guilty to talk about kind of thing as well. It's not even like a arbitrary like, oh, it's in your, like, because you know that theoretically, like, there's always someone who has it worse than you. But in Lanka, it's like you can step out to the street and you can literally see people who have it worse than you. So it's like, oh, am I just being a little worse? Just being just, I don't know, telling my sob story. Or I don't know, but I don't think it's that invalidates your own story.
It's just that you going through something doesn't mean that it's and not going through the same thing that someone else did. It's not, doesn't mean that you have to disregard it pretty much. So like, yeah.
But I gotta say that I just gotta say that it does help though in terms of inspiration for getting through things. Like, okay, just putting things in perspective, but it doesn't. It definitely doesn't invalidate. But people can find strength in it
Yeah,
for sure.
it kind of like helps you get through it. And I guess the point of this, like to get to the basis of this this explainer, episode 0, is that what you called it? Episode 0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 0, the little taster of what's next, I guess.
This is where people can come together and make a sort of story bank. By the end of a season, you have a whole bunch of stories stored in a bank, and now every episode is like a memory deposit that you go through, and whatever. Everyone has a story. Whoever we get into the show,
It's not all sad. So it can be funny stuff. It could be it could be anything. But I think what the point is that I think that it was pretty funny that we were like, oh, you're trying to come up with a name. It was like we should look at synonyms for trauma, and then obviously Dylan is being very inadequate,
inept
technology in general. Inept, yeah, true, inept. Sorry, but he's like, oh, I can't. There's no synonyms for trauma, bro. It's like, well, that's like, wow, that's good. Like that is true. And I was talking. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like perfect. And I was talking to my dad, like, what's a singular word for trauma? It's like, there's so many like words, but it doesn't hit hit it on the nail. Like there's PDAVA, there's Manasika PDAVA, there's all these other stuff. But I think Manasika PDAVA is like the closest I could get. But this is still,
I don't know. It doesn't
no, it
capture
doesn't.
the whole vibe, to put it like really plainly. The
Yeah,
vibe,
the vibe, bro. It's a vibe.
trauma is a vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole
trauma's a vibe. No, but just to get back to the synonym bit, right? I was like, okay, that was just Dylan just not being able to do shit. But
you're the trauma in my life.
yeah, this is all. So the first 100 episodes is Dylan talking about how I've traumatized him through bullying. But I think it's good because it's a synonym, right? It's like, okay, what are these common shared experiences? For example, tsunami, it could be all of us have different stories. So it's sort of it's a synonym, I guess, in terms of memories or experiences. It's a shared event, but obviously the impact is personal.
There's a interesting word that we found out. It's called a commonality. Shared events. So I feel like a lot of us and people you see that come in and out of this podcast, people that we get in, have these shared events, and it'd be pretty interesting to see. Like it's a very, I think back home and like the friends you keep makes you into a certain close knit community where like the same sort of thing happens to everyone, and everyone has eventually, like what we've been trying to say throughout this whole episode, is that everyone has a story.
Yeah, for sure, and it's just and then the one more thing is just that I guess I was talking before about people discounting because of someone with a sort of a rougher life or a harder experience. But there's another point, which is you might tend to discount it because experiences that might not have happened directly to you. You're just a bystander, right? You're a secondhand smoker. You're getting that secondhand trauma just from, for example, the example I always go to is tsunami. Just I didn't know anyone like who was affected by it, like who was close to me, but still just being there, surrounded by that news and that trauma, affects you, right? And that's shared among people, and that doesn't still invalidate. Like you don't need to directly experience. People die from secondhand smoking, and they haven't smoked just like a single cigarette in their life, right? same thing with trauma. Like, it doesn't mean that you have to be personally victimized or affected by it physically. Like, you can just be there, being a pedestrian almost, and still get, still be affected by it. So I think we ought to get those stories out, right. They're not the most exciting Hollywood, I went through hell and back kind of things. It's more like I'm just a normal guy or woman or anyone in between who just, had some experiences, could be anything, and just want to save that in the bank, like Dylan said.
Because at the end of the day, like, it's still gonna be interesting. Like, you're gonna be in for a bit of a show, to be honest.
Yeah. Someone's gonna relate. Like, it's like, oh, that I felt that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just when you relate to something, it's just you immediately, I don't know, connect, and you feel good. You feel better than you're not alone, which is awesome. And even if none of that happens, it's still just, I think it's cool.
And I guess if you made it to the end of this,
yeah, and this is not the end, because anytime one of us says this is gonna end, we're gonna go rambling and ranting and going on to tangents.
It's like when you leave, when you're like trying to leave the party, and then you go outside.
That's legit. That's like a very Lankan thing. Is also like, oh, you said bye.
It's also like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people still do that. I don't want to call it just a Lankan thing. I'd say I go far. I go, let's call it like a brown thing, but I've seen like so many people do it anyway. Like, people who are not brown.
I think I guess everyone does it. I think it's I feel like it's an old generation thing as well. It's like
the unwillingness to leave coming out, right? Like fathoming out of, like,
exactly. I think it's like responsibility, right? On one hand, versus whatever the opposite, like whatever, like your sort of intuition telling you to do. Intuition wants you to stay and enjoy, but I got work tomorrow, so I got to leave. And this conflict that happens for like an hour, where you're saying bye but you're not leaving, and then you move to the door and you say bye, and then you're like, oh, I forgot something, I'll go back in, and you spend like another 20 minutes talking to someone, come back out, get into the car, come around and say bye again. Like, and this has no relevance to this podcast, we're just rambling, so
like that. So yeah, if you want to listen to some interesting stories, relate to some great memories that people have had,
or be on the podcast, we're looking for people.
Please come.
we need you. If you get tired of just listening to us two, you should come on the podcast.
That brings us to our name reveal, I guess. Took us like a whole day and a whole bunch of
and then the what we came
completely
up with is
different,
like not related,
but also
completely different.
Not really.
It's not. Yeah, I like it. I guess it's not a name reveal, because I guess this will come out with the podcast name on it. There's no reveal.
Again, me being like technologically inept.
But it's not. The thing is, like, you've been setting up everything. You've been doing like production and recording and setting up accounts, and I'm just trying to work my mic properly.
And they just get distracted. Like, I can't use the phone and listen to you at the same time.
Yeah. This is
yeah. So the name,
the Well Society.
All right, so it's really not that big of a deal, but like, we kind of brainstormed through a whole bunch of names, and then eventually weird idea came,
and a meme
came up, like the Linda Laga Sangame, which is like a funny,
classic,
which is like
which is basically what we're doing, because
but the idea honestly started with this how like all of us have a well back home, and back in the day it used to be this great source of natural resource, right? So like of life. This great source of life throughout the time, and like eventually people just started getting on with the waterboard, and then they're completely useless, and they're just like.
You just said getting on board
No,
with
I
the
said getting
waterboard.
on with the waterboard. Maybe I did. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Playback.
Yeah, and then now there's just these weird vessels that go like hundreds of meters into your ground and almost do nothing.
I know, and it's, I mean, all through human society, right? It's been, water has been the most precious resource. All civilizations have happened next to water, and we kind of, I don't know. It's just, I guess what we're trying to say is everyone has a well, right? You might not be using it, but everyone has it. Everyone at least had at the time. Even if there wasn't one, right? People had like a communal well, right? Where people come and share their stories, right? It might be gossip or, I don't know, talking shit behind people's back, but it was just a way of connecting with the community, right? This is kind of the same, but with more banter.
Yeah, perfect. Well put. I think the World Society podcast. Follow us on Instagram. We'll be on Spotify. I mean, I'm assuming you'll be listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast. We'll also be on YouTube. Keep an eye out for that. And interesting things to come. Interesting people to come.
Easy.
And happy days.
Happy days.
Hope everyone's staying safe and take care.
Bye bye.